Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Diablo 3 Season 22, Patch 2.6.10 Disintegrate build. Uh, Anybody who has played Diablo 3 for the past year or two knows that that Disintegrate has been uh, relatively neglected in terms of synergistic items that have make it a viable build. So this build that I'm going to talk you through here is going to be focused on creating as viable a Disintegrate build as possible using the Legacy of Dreams gem, which gives you increased damage dealt and damage reduction for every legendary, ancient legendary, or primal ancient legendary item you have equipped. You don't want to have any set items equipped in this, as that will uh, result in not as much damage as you could be doing. I should also point out this build is, at this moment, I have not tested it, so I can't say whether it's going to be good for uh, greater rift pushing. What I can say is that my brother loves the Disintegrate ability, and he asked me to put together a build that he could run uh, casually, as it were, or so this is mostly just a casual build, have fun, with your mates, with your friends, whatever you want to call them. And so it should also be good for group play. If you've got, say, one person, you got, say, a three-man team, one person running a Legacy of Dreams Hydra build, and the other running Gears of the Dreadlands or something, then this, would be a good build to help supplement the damage that your partners in game will be doing. Um, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to take is our primary, is of course Spectral Blade, and we are going to be using the Barrier Blades rune. Because the reason being, as it says, with each cast, you gain you gain a protective. Come on, come on, come on, mouse, work with me. You gain a protective shield that, of course, now it's not going to want to do it. Basically, there it is. With each cast, you gain a protective shield for 3 seconds that absorbs 4% of your life and damage. That's not much, but it's a little bit of extra defense. Very important. Of course, the bread and butter of the build is going to be the Disintegrate skill. Channel a beam of pure energy, dealing 390 weapon damage as arcane. The damage is increased by 250 per second, up to a maximum of 890 total damage as arcane. So that's if it's 390 to begin with, maximum of 250 per second, totals 890. You channel it for 2 seconds, and it will increase, and you'll be at max damage with it. Now, the reason we're taking the Convergence rune, which all that does is turn the damage into fire and increase the width of the beam, is because of the synergy, the items I selected to try to synergize with that fire damage and increase it as best we can. We're going to be taking Storm Armor, and we're going to be taking Storm Armor for the periodic shocking of nearby enemies, as it says, which will synergize well with the Halo of Karini ring that we'll go over in a few minutes. But also, we're going to be taking the Power of the Storm rune, because it does reduce the arcane power cost of all skills by 3 while Storm Armor is active. Why that particular rune will become apparent in a moment. We're going to take Magic Weapon Deflection, gives us increased damage, and the Deflection rune will give us a little bit more toughness. Now, these last two, Slow Time and Teleport, these are just based on, okay, what would work well in a group setting. So I chose Slow Time, and I selected the Time Warp rune because enemies caught in the bubble take 15% more damage as the wizard rocking this build, you'll be able to hang back, drop the time warps on groups of enemies your game mates are fighting in front of you. That'll do more damage. They'll take more damage from both of you. So this is a good, group play type skill. But that's not the only part of it. One of the helmet we're going to take will give us all the runes for slow time. So really helps out everybody. And then teleport, safe passage. Just gives you more defense when you teleport for 5 seconds. With enough cooldown, you should be able to teleport around pretty frequently, but you don't want to overdo it. For our passives, we're going to take Blur, nice 17% damage reduction. We're going to take Evocation for the cooldown reduction. We're going to take Power Hungry for the additional damage to enemies farther than 30 yards, which is at least 30 yards is going to be at least half a computer screen's distance away from you. So if you're in the middle of the screen, any enemy that's at least near the edge of the screen, you're going to be doing that additional damage. And then we're also going to take Unwavering Will, because as it says, standing still for 1.5 seconds increases armor by 20%, all resistances by 20, and damage by 10. This is because since you have to stand in place and channel with Disintegrate, this is a nice skill to have as it increases those attributes. Now, the items. As I said, there are no set items. These are all legendaries, and of course you would want ancient or even better primal ancient items. But we're going to start with our helm, because this is one of the reasons why we have the slow time rune, because the Crown of the Primus, the legendary effect is that slow time gains the effect of every rune. So maybe you drop one slow time bubble on yourself, because one of the slow time runes gives increased attack speed. And then if you put them all around on enemies, as your partners in the game are attacking them, they'll be moving in and around the bubbles, so they'll get the increased attack speed as well. Other reason I chose this, in fact, I'll just say it now, a lot of the reason why I chose most of these are just because, again, trying to synergize as best we could with Disintegrate since there's no viable build. We're going to take the Mantle of Channeling on our shoulders. While channeling any of those skills, the one we care about is, of course, Disintegrate, you deal increased damage and take less damage, so that's very helpful. We're going to take Mage Fists, mostly only for the increased damage for fire skills, which, by taking the Convergence rune, Disintegrate becomes a fire skill. We're also going to take Cinder Coat. It gives a nice increase to fire damage. I don't believe that 2 to 3% is accurate. I believe it's more. But more importantly, it reduces the resource cost of fire skills by as much as 30%. As far as amulets go, there's no real good synergistic amulet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the Hellfire amulet to get a 5th passive. And then for the 5th passive, you either want... Where did I put it? There it is. For the 5th passive, you would ideally want Astral Presence. That gives you more arcane power overall and increases your arcane regen. As long as it's one of these 4 or Arcane Presence, that's what you'd want in the Hellfire Amulet. We're going to take Hergbrash's Binding to reduce the arcane power cost of Arcane Torrent, Disintegrate, we care about Disintegrate, by as much as 65%. So, just to do the math real quick, as minimum 80% or minimum 50% resource cost reduction from the belt, at least 23 from another 23 from our Cinder Coat. So minimum between these two, that's 73% resource cost reduction. Once you get max resource cost reduction from Paragon points, that will put it up to 80. That'll put it up to 83. But assuming that you don't get at the lowest possible rolls on these two, it's entirely conceivable that your resource cost reduction will be close to 100%, meaning you will be free to channel Disintegrate as long as you want. And that's also very important because of the armor item we'll take in our cube. We'll take Ashnagar's Blood Bracer to increase the potency of our shields by up to 100%. We will take the Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac to increase our cooldown, the reduction of our cooldown, or increase cooldown reduction by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack, which, even though we won't be spending much, if any, resource on Disintegrate, it'll still proc our ORATs, as they call it. The Halo of Carini, this is why we're taking Storm Armor, because we get damage reduction for 5 seconds after Storm Armor electrocutes an enemy more than 15 yards away, which is just about inside melee range, so that's going to be helpful. For our boots, again, just, something. We're going to take Illusory Boots so that you don't get bogged down by groups. You can move unhindered through enemies. For pants, this is a tough one because there's no real good pants for this particular build. So you have two choices here. I put down Swampland Raiders because it does give a boost to either fire, cold, holy, lightning, poison, or arcane damage. Then it's actually 15 to 20% that it would give. If you don't have a good Swampland Waders, or you don't want to run with those, then I would suggest going with something like Poxfolds, which at least gives off a poison damage cloud around you to enemies within melee range. So they're not very good choices, but of the two, Swampland Waders is going to be the one that you would want to go with first. For our shield, we're going to take Lidless Wall just for the boost to fire damage. Unfortunately, with the changes to the Etched Sigil offhand, we have no good Disintegrate offhand, so this is going to be our best bet for now. But we will take the Death Wish sword. While channeling Disintegrate for at least 1 second, all your damage is increased by at least 325%. That's a very nice damage boost. For our gems, of course, we're going to take Legacy of Dreams for that damage increase and damage reduction for every legendary item you have. Now, the 3.75 and the 2% are at level 1. So there's a possible of 14 item slots. So 14 times 3.75%, you're looking at right around 45 to 50% damage increase at level 1. The gem goes as high as level 150. So at max level, you're looking at around close to 750% damage increase. Bane of the Trapped, increase enemy damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects, which will be constantly procced by your slow time ability. And then we're going to take Teguk because it's a channeling gem. Gain 2% increased damage for 1.5 seconds when you spend resource on a channeled skill. This effect stacks up to 10, so that's 20% damage for when you start channeling, so very important there. And then for Kanai's Cube, we're going to go with the Convention of Elements. Since you're going to be channeling a lot, there's no real, wait for your arcane window or for your fire window. You're going to get at least a 150 to 200% increased damage boost for 4 seconds every 20 seconds. So, you don't have to worry about damage windows or anything. This is going to be our best bet. It was either this or Stone of Jordan, and on the whole, I would prefer the Convention of Elements because even though it's only going to be 4 seconds at a time, the damage increase of at least 150%, in my opinion, outweighs the Stone of Jordan. We're going to take the Aquila Cuirass because well above 90, at least 90% primary resource, all damage taken is reduced by 50%. With the damage reduction we'll have from our Cinder Coat, or excuse me, our cooldown, or yes, our resource cost reduction we'll get from our Cinder Coat, from our belt, from the Astral Presence passive, and from our innate Arcane Regen. We're going to easily be above that minimum of 90% primary resource threshold, so that damage reduction of 50% will be with us constantly. And then for our weapon, we're going to take the Echoing Fury. This is just because it will, when you kill enemies, you get a massive attack speed boost. And then for Season 22, what I would suggest doing, for the 4th slot, I would suggest taking the Gesture of Orpheus as your 4th cube slot because of the cooldown reduction towards slow time it grants you, which when you put a diamond in your helmet plus Gesture of Orpheus plus cooldown reduction from Paragon points, you should be able to bring slow time down to about an 8-second cooldown. So that should be pretty good. And then for Paragon priorities, first thing I do is put in a movement speed, just so you don't feel too slow. For primary, and then intelligence, dump everything else into intelligence after that. For offense, cooldown reduction first, then crit chance, then attack speed, then crit damage. For defense, go armor, life, resist all, life regen. And then for utility, go resource cost reduction, life on hit, area damage, and that's actually gold pickup radius now. But those are the order you would want to do that, in which you'd want to take the Paragon points. And then once you're up to Paragon level 800, you'll have offense, defense, and utility all maxed out, and you can start dumping everything else into intelligence. And in fact, if you have movement speed on your boots, then you'll be able to take some of the points out of that and reallocate them into intelligence. And that's going to be about it, guys. I apologize. This is not the most professional setup, but it's really my first time doing something like this. And as I said, there's no real good Disintegrate build in the game. This is just cobbled and thrown together, as it might be fun. Doesn't hurt. I wouldn't expect to see a Disintegrate build become a viable thing for at least another 6 months or 2 to 3 seasons. But here's hoping that Blizzard gives it some love before Diablo 4 comes out, because Disintegrate is a fun build. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. I will see you next time.